You see this color everywhere, for free. On a cheap t-shirt, on your phone screen, in a child's box of crayons. But for most of human history, purple was the single most valuable substance on Earth, worth more than gold, and wearing it could get you executed. Why? Because to make it, you had to crush tens of thousands of sea snails and let them rot. This is the story of the color that emperors killed to keep, and how it went from the ultimate symbol of power to the cheapest thing you own. The secret to this coveted pigment lies in the shallow coastal waters of the ancient Mediterranean. Here, clinging to jagged rocks and buried in the sand, lived small, spiny sea snails known as the murex. These unremarkable mollusks carried a biological treasure. Hidden inside each creature, tucked away near its respiratory cavity, sits a single, minuscule organ, the hypobranchial gland. This tiny gland produces a thick, milky fluid intended to paralyze prey. When first extracted, the mucus is entirely colorless. But when exposed to air and sunlight, a chemical reaction occurs, transforming the pale secretion into a vibrant, dark violet. The catch was the volume. A single murex snail yields only a tiny fraction of a single drop of this precious fluid. To obtain even a spoonful of raw pigment, workers had to harvest and process thousands of individual snails. The source itself made the color fragile, limited, and extraordinarily difficult to obtain. To extract the precursor fluid, ancient workers sat before massive piles of live sea snails, cracking each shell by hand with heavy stone mallets. A single careless blow could crush the tiny hypobranchial gland, ruining the harvest. Laborers used sharp bronze hooks to carefully tease out the single, minuscule drop of mucus from each creature's body. They pooled these colorless secretions into massive lead vats, mixing them with coarse sea salt before leaving the entire slurry to rot. For up to 10 days, this organic matter fermented in the baking Mediterranean sun, bubbling as it slowly broke down. The chemical decomposition released a suffocating wave of ammonia and sulfur, creating a stench so foul that Roman municipal laws forced these dye works to the far edges of cities, downwind from society. Here, in the reeking heat, the colorless slime slowly decayed, oxidizing into a dark, blood-like broth. To obtain just 1 single gram of pure dye powder, workers had to hand crack and process roughly 12,000 snails. This grotesque, back-breaking slaughter yielded a liquid that smelled of death, but held the secret to absolute power. This foul liquid dried into a substance literally worth more than gold. In the ancient market, a single pound of wool dyed with true Tyrian purple commanded 50,000 denarii. For a master Roman stonecutter or carpenter, earning the legal limit of 100 denarii a day, purchasing a single pound of this fabric required 500 days of continuous labor. A simple scrap of the cloth represented a lifetime of savings. But buyers paid these fortunes because murex dye possessed a near miraculous quality. While cheap vegetable dyes faded, ran, and rotted in the sun, Tyrian purple resisted decay. Exposure to sunlight actually caused the molecular bonds of the pigment to react, making the color deeper, brighter, and more luminous with age. It was a permanent, glowing badge of wealth. In the Roman Republic and Empire, this permanent, luminous color ceased to be a mere luxury. It became a legally defined instrument of state power. Roman authorities constructed a rigid hierarchy of dress, transforming fabric into political architecture. Under these sumptuary laws, the right to wear purple was strictly portioned out by rank. A senator could wear a thin purple stripe on his toga, known as the toga praetexta, signaling public office. But the solid, completely dyed purple robe, the legendary toga picta, was a restricted sovereign monument. It belonged exclusively to triumphing generals during their victory parades, and eventually, to the absolute ruler of the Mediterranean world, the Roman emperor himself. Wrapping oneself in solid Tyrian purple was the ultimate visual declaration of authority. The color transcended wealth, functioning as the physical manifestation of the state. To wear it was to embody the empire itself, turning a garment into a monopoly that immediately identified the single individual standing at the absolute apex of Roman civilization. This absolute control over a color turned fashion into a matter of state security. Any deviation from the codes became an act of defiance. By the 1st century, Roman emperors claimed the richest, double-dyed Tyrian purple as a strict monopoly. Under rulers like Nero, this monopoly became fatal. In 56 AD, a nobleman named Gaius Catius wore a full purple toga in public. Nero had him executed. A few years later, Lucius Annius was exiled to Alexandria simply for owning purple silk. To the imperial court, draped in this snail-born pigment, wearing the color without permission constituted high treason, a visual coup d'etat. The garment itself was read as a physical claim to the throne, and the Roman state answered that claim with the executioner's blade. For a citizen of Rome, a single thread of the wrong shade transformed a luxury coat into a death warrant. Long before Rome transformed this pigment into a political weapon, a maritime civilization built an entire economy on its production. On the shores of the Levant, the Phoenicians transformed the fowl broth into the cornerstone of a global trade network. Their most legendary port, the island city of Tyre, became synonymous with the color, housing massive, permanent dye works that fueled their expansion. The connection was so profound that the Greeks named these merchant mariners the Phoenicians, literally the purple people. Tyre's wealth was built on the backs of daring sailors who carried sealed pottery jars of the liquid wealth across the sea, trading it in Egypt, Greece, Carthage, and Spain. Ancient tax records reveal that nearly 30% of Tyre's entire state revenue came directly from taxing this single commodity. While other empires expanded through military conquest, the Phoenicians dominated the ancient marketplace by monopolizing a luxury item that everyone coveted, but no one else could produce. A single color, squeezed from millions of coastal snails, had funded the ships, harbors, and colonies that connected the ancient world. For more than 1,000 years, this foul-smelling secretion remained the ultimate boundary of human status, guarded by empires that rose and fell. But every monopoly has an expiration date. In May of 1453, Ottoman cannons shattered the walls of Constantinople. As the Byzantine Empire collapsed, the imperial dye works went dark. The complex, multi-week recipe for fermenting murex snails vanished alongside the artisans who fled or perished in the siege. In a single stroke, the ancient secret was lost, ending a millennium of imperial purple and leaving the coveted color to history. In 1856, the ancient monopoly was shattered not by an empire, but by an 18-year-old chemistry student working in a London attic. William Henry Perkin was trying to synthesize quinine, a cure for malaria, using cheap coal tar. Instead, his beaker filled with a dark, sludge-like residue that produced a brilliant, permanent violet. He had accidentally created the world's first synthetic organic dye. This single mistake stripped purple of its royal prestige overnight. The color that once demanded the slaughter of millions of sea snails and cost a lifetime of labor was suddenly mass-produced in coal-fired factories. Today, the ultimate badge of imperial tyranny is completely democratic, found on cheap t-shirts, plastic toys, and glowing digital screens. The ancient secret of the emperors died in the mud, replaced by a teenage chemist's happy accident. Today, the color of absolute power is yours for pennies. In democratizing purple, we stripped away the blood, stench, and tyranny that gave it worth. It is a victory of chemistry over cruelty, even if it costs the color its magic. Subscribe for more dark histories, or